Hi everyone, I'm Thelma Vlamis, a holistic counsellor and psychotherapist, and I specialise in helping people process their feelings from maybe what they've gone through at a younger age, from trauma, from wounding, and to thrive in life. So, what I'm doing with the work that I do is I support people to reach their goals. I often believe and deeply believe that our process in this world is to have something bigger to strive for, to have something to look forward to. So this brings me to today's topic, which is, what is my purpose? I've had this question come in to the masterclass, and today's masterclass is all around how to identify your purpose and what does it mean to have a purpose as well. If we are going to do the inner work, if we're going to feel our feelings, process our feelings, go to therapy, if we are going to hire a coach, whatever it is that we want to do in the personal development world, we really do want to have something that we're working towards. Because often, and what I found working at a mental health retreat as well as in my own one-on-one work, is that if people didn't have a goal or something to be working towards, it didn't necessarily have to be career, it could be family, it could be relationship goals, something to work towards to make what they're going through worth it. Because when we are going through healing, when we are feeling and processing our feelings, it isn't easy. We come up against, it's confronting, come up against shame, we can feel big emotions, we can be confronted with um, situations that we've got ourselves in and are taking ourselves out of. We can be confronted with past relationships and maybe how we've hurt people or our children or how they've hurt us. So all this can come up in the nervous system, and it can come up as shame, terror, fear. It's quite uncomfortable. It's discomfort. So if I'm going to be working through my emotions, I want to know there's something for me on the other side. And this is why I'm going to talk about what is your purpose. Okay, let's jump right into it. So today's masterclass, we're going to go through, as I mentioned, what does purpose mean and how do I identify mine? So I would get you to ask yourself, what does purpose mean to me as an individual? What does it mean for me to have purpose in my life? How would that feel? What would that feel like to have purpose in my life? Many of us who have not reached our potential or worked towards it and have been in jobs or situations where we are just kind of scraping the surface of our potential, our strengths, our zone of genius, what we will find is that we're not even sure what it would feel like to be in our purpose, to be living in our purpose. Some people know the feeling that they're reaching for, and it might be something like, I would feel excitement, I would feel content with life, I would feel an inner peace knowing that I was on the right track. I would have clarity and direction in my life, and I would feel really motivated and passionate about what I'm doing. So those are all the things that I feel in my purpose and what I'm doing with the work that I'm doing. Now, how do we identify our purpose, and why is it that we get to a point in our lives where we want to identify what gives us purpose? How come when we were younger, this wasn't harnessed, encouraged? It wasn't sort of given to us in a way that we could go into opportunities and be seen in our purpose and then develop from there. We're going to go through that. So your story in your life, from when you were born to what family you're born into, to the values that your family carry, the trauma your family carries, the challenges and the celebrations you've been through in your life, all of these things play a part in uncovering what gives you purpose. So it's your story. It's your experience of life from when you were born, from when you're in the womb. It's your family's experience of life, their worldview as well as your worldview, because our family has influenced our worldview and our upbringing. So what underneath here, what I've got is what actually gets in the way of us uncovering our purpose. Lack of confidence that there's something more in this world for you. So we could wake up maybe every morning thinking, is this it? You know, maybe we've reached a goal of ours we thought would make us happy, and we've realized, wait a minute, I've got all these things in my life that I thought would make me happy, and they don't. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel passionate. I don't feel like I want to grow in this phase of my career, in this life that I have at the moment. There's nothing that really motivates me or gives me passion in this area. This is because we reach a stage of our life where we will evolutionally want to grow. So naturally, on a biological level, we grow. Physiologically, we grow, right? Well, spiritually, we also grow as well. And when we get older, as we get older, we want more from life because we've created our basic needs around us. We have the food, shelter, money, resources, a house, a car. We've got the things that create certainty and security around us. And then what we want is something that feeds our soul, something that makes us excited to get up in the morning, something that gives us meaning and fulfillment and this inner contentment, right? So we get to a stage where we're evolving. We're constantly evolving. We stop that evolution through fear. When we are in fear, we get stuck in this cycle of not evolving to our potential and not growing into our potential. So the lack of confidence is one reason why we don't choose to move forward. You know, I couldn't do that. They can do that. I can't possibly do that. I couldn't start my own business. I couldn't explore that. I can't afford it. This is all any excuse we have around moving forward with an idea that we might have, a curiosity, that it is all surrounded by the fact that we are not confident that we can achieve the very thing that we want to achieve. So switching that and understanding that part of us is really important. What other parts? Fantasy and persona. What does this actually mean? I've brought up fantasy in another masterclass. Now, fantasy is when we are not truly seeing our authentic self and we're not expressing it. A fantasy is I will create a persona, an identity around what feels good in my life. And anything that doesn't feel good, I will push away, further away from me, which means that I'm actually pushing away my alignment. What would get me closer to my purpose and alignment? This is what manifesting is all about. Now, the reason why manifesting doesn't work for some people is because they are using toxic positivity, fantasy, to try to get what they want. So what happens with this is we might get what we want, but something negative happens as a consequence. So we're not quite in alignment with what we want. So with uncovering your purpose, we might be in a fantasy, in a denial around the purpose we think we have. So some of us can think, this is what I'm doing, this is what I really love doing. But the reality of it is that it might not be quite your purpose, because there might be some more uncovering of your story. And this includes the bad, the negative, the trauma, the wounding, as well as your zone of genius, your strength, your individuality, the thing that you're really amazing at too. So that creating fantasy can actually block us from seeing both of these things. So it's our persona, our personality. What is fantasy and persona created from? It's actually created from our protector It's the part of us that wants things to be positive, that wants things to feel good. It's that part of us that is fearful of looking at our shame, terror, at any emotions that may cause dysregulation. So we really want to look at that fantasy, but it can be really difficult at the same time. It takes courage and deep honesty and self-responsibility to do that. Now, fear, instinct versus conditioning. I'm going to explain conditioning in this video as well. Fear stops us from uncovering our purpose, because uncovering your purpose is not a quick, do this course and you will uncover your purpose. It's actually processing, delayering all the things that are covering your purpose up in the first place, that are covering up your potential, your strengths that you may not be able to see or you perceive as something else, because you have been conditioned to devalue yourself. And this is what worthiness is all about. So instinctively, we've got fear that comes up, and that's what we want. We want fear because it's a signal. Anytime my clients feel fear, we go into the information, the inner wisdom that fear has. It always guaranteed has wisdom. Versus conditioning. Now, we can be conditioned to fear something. It still has inner wisdom. Conditioning, though, means that I have had to let go of a part of myself to avoid feeling a negative feeling and to behave a certain way. I'm going to get to this. Conditioning is how we were treated when we were younger and how our personality was shaped. What our caregivers and parents thought was positive or negative, and how they disciplined us. How we explored sports, creativity in our life, going to school, studying, all those things had an impact on us and conditioned us in a certain way to act in a way that's going to minimize fear and discomfort. So conditioning is what creates our personality to be in this world. It can get in the way, because if we were not around people who are creative, who step out of the traditional way of thinking, we will think that, some of us may have grown up thinking, I'm not a creative person, but it may be that your creativity was not harnessed, was not encouraged and cultivated. So we'll go into that. So these are things that are stopping you from successfully living into your purpose. Generally, it's the fear, conditioning, and lack of confidence. Okay, so on a psychological level, I'm bringing in like first-year psychology into this as well. When we were young, we were exploring our identity, if I can speak. And if we were not encouraged on this exploration and that was not cultivated, because our caregivers or parents may have been stressed, anxious, depressed, dealing with their own mental health, dealing with having a family and trying to provide, whatever it is that your parents were possibly neglectful towards your uncovering your identity, right? Who are you as an individual? What do you like? What don't you like? What are your strengths? What's your wisdom? What's your natural gifts? If we were not encouraged in this space, we will lack a sense of self. And lacking this sense of self, it means that we will find it really difficult to know what we like and dislike, to know what gives us purpose, to know how to live in alignment. So as an adult, we may come to a quarter life or midlife crisis because we haven't got to a point where we're like, well, who am I? What do I like? What gives me purpose? So if it was not encouraged or uncovered when we were younger, Erickson believes that as adults we'll have a quarter life, midlife crisis, which is something I went through personally, to uncover who we are on a deep level, our authenticity, our alignment, and what gives us purpose. So it says, if you haven't explored your identity as a teenager and come to enough of a resolution so that the path you embark on in adulthood is one that you have consciously chosen, you will not arrive at a firm identity or sense of self as an adult. Identity. So this is a huge part as to why we're not sure what gives us purpose and what we could work towards. We lose a sense of who we are when we live by other people's values, societal values, family values. So this is the conditioning I'm talking about. This is what creates our personality, but it's not necessarily who we are on an authentic level. And we can lose those parts of us, but they haven't gone. It just means we need to reconnect with those parts. And in order for us to reconnect with those parts, we need to listen to the inner wisdom of our fear, our emotions. That's what it means to, as a guidance system, our feelings and emotions are our guidance to discovering these parts of us that we had to separate from, fragment from, to survive and to be connected with our family, our friends, our caregivers. As an adult, we start to go, who am I? And it's okay if I think differently to you. I don't believe that, I don't believe I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be okay if I have a different opinion, if I have different likes and dislikes. These are also our boundaries. So depending on your experience growing up too, if you've had a lot of trauma growing up, you will find it even more difficult to find alignment because you were taught to survive in life. This meant you had to self-abandon on an extreme level. Now, if you had a little bit of trauma growing up, in the sense of, like, there's a scale of trauma. Some people were physically, mentally, sexually abused, and some people were emotionally abused and didn't get the physical or mental abuse. So yes, the mental abuse as well. But it depends on the scale of trauma that you've been through. That will impact your ability to find your sense of self. And what I mean by that is, the more trauma we've had in relationship to other, the less trust we have in ourselves and other people. So in order for us to be able to uncover what gives us purpose and our alignment and to step into it, we need to really work super hard at not listening to the voices that come up that want to self-sabotage our experience. This can be very difficult for people who have gone through extreme trauma. If that person can start to explore those voices and the thought processes that are stopping them from working with someone, uncovering what gives them purpose, stopping them from really stepping into it, then that is going to be really difficult, because the voices that come up for some people can be really dark and they can be really negative around themselves. Like, who do you think you are to be able to step into this? You're never going to do this. You're worthless. Like, these voices can be pretty harsh. It could be like, don't trust that person. They don't know what they're talking about, and then what happens is we reinforce these self-fulfilling prophecies by creating scenarios where people can't be trusted. So that's a whole nother topic as well. But our belief systems definitely play a part in whether we believe we can have more in our life than just what we've got already. Sometimes if you find yourself justifying that it's totally fine what you have, you're minimizing the part of you that wants more, that wants to live into what gives you purpose, and that wants to live into your full potential. So there will be that's a protector part that does that. It will minimize what you truly want, and it will leak out in other areas of your life. You will become more depressed, anxious, or you will get health symptoms that will become worse if you ignore the part of you that wants to grow and evolve. I've seen it over and over again. Until we become consciously aware of our choices, fear and parts of ourselves we've left behind as children would be driven by our subconscious and making decisions that are motivated from a place of avoiding certain situations rather than moving towards what we want in our life, which results in our evolution. So if I am living in my fear, what this looks like. It can be people pleasing, putting other people before me. It can be not investing in ourselves and our personal growth in fear that we're being selfish. It could be feeling guilty for spending money on ourselves for personal growth, but being okay with going on a vacation. It could be, what are other examples of this? Keeping ourselves small because we don't, on a subconscious level, we don't want to be seen. We don't want to step out of our comfort because it's scary. So that's another way. Anything that we're avoiding to do is a really good signal to we're doing it from a place of fear. We're trying to avoid the discomfort. The opposite of this is knowing what you want, having clarity of it, and it feels light and exciting when you create that clarity, and moving towards it whilst taking care of that vulnerable part of you that is fearing it at the same time, which is parts work. So here we are at conditioning. Now, conditioning is a really interesting concept, and there's two forms that they talk about in first year psychology. The first one is around Pavlov's dog, and this is where the dog started salivating after conditioning, started salivating after the bell was rang. So how did they do this? What they did is they got the bell and the food to hit that. What they did is they fed the dog the food and then rang the bell at the same time. Before this, they made sure that the dog had no conditioned response to the bell. So they had no food there, they just had the bell and they rang the bell. The dog didn't respond. So it didn't salivate, didn't respond in any way, probably just heard the bell. And then what they did is they did this, they had the food there, they had that on its own without the bell, and they fed the dog the food, which again, that food then created salivation, unconditioned response because it wasn't associated with another thing. It was just the food that it knew that it was about to eat, so it was salivating. Without the food and just the bell, no salivation. Then what they did is they fed the dog the food and rang the bell at the same time. They did this over and over again. I think it didn't take many goes for it to then plant an imprint in the dog. And then after a few times, what they did is they just rang the bell without feeding the dog. And the dog would salivate, even though beforehand it didn't. It then now associated the bell with just about getting the food or getting food. So it started salivating. How does this relate to us as humans? Now, we have very similar conditioning around how we were treated when we were younger and associations. So certain qualities in people will trigger and activate a response with us. If someone reminds me of a brother that I have that was really mean to me, right, had qualities of that, like personality qualities and traits of that, maybe aggression, maybe it was like dismissiveness, things like that, we are going to associate that person with a negative, like it's going to be a negative autonomic response in us. So there's conditioning there. It's the same with social situations. If we were it's how we were treated in those social situations, which will either create anxiety in us or calmness, depending on what our associations with that is. So when I work with triggers, I work with the underneath the trigger. There's often something underneath it, because what is happening is there's a conditioned response, which means the conditioning is a fear response that's come up because it associates the situation with a past experience. And it's saying that something in this situation reminds me of a negative past experience that I've had. So this is how conditioning works for us. It's the same as like seeing a snake and we get a fear response as soon as we see a snake. Other conditioning processes are the punishment and reward that we got when we were growing up. And with that punishment and reward, what has happened is we've we have been taught how to behave in a certain way. And say if we had really critical or overbearing or controlling parents, then what would happen with that is that their projection of what they think is right and wrong would create our fear response or not having a fear response. So that would mean that it would create our personality of what we think is good and what we think is bad. If we were completely neglected growing up, we were not shown what was healthy way of behaving and what was unhealthy way of behaving. So it all depends on our upbringing as well. Okay, your body has the answers, your mind can get in the way. This is why I work with the body as well, because the inner wisdom of your body is your alignment, and your mind can really be against what your body needs and wants. And examples of this are burnout, people who think that they need to work really hard to get a job done and get it finished, or else they may get in trouble or they don't meet a deadline, but their body is exhausted and is telling them, slow down. Instead of slowing down, they might have lots of coffee, stay up late at night and be like, no, I just have to push through. That's an example of not listening to the body where it has information. We were taught to do this in a world where we were taught to avoid, dismiss, and minimize our feelings, to not be dramatic, to not be a wuss, to not be weak. So we've been taught to do this. However, evolutionary speaking, we are starting to come into more alignment with our feelings, our body, our health. So now we're realizing that we can't just ignore the health of our body because it's all connected. So what are we suppressing and what are we repressing? This is something that is really important when we're unfolding what gives us purpose. The reason this is important is because if I am suppressing parts of myself that are creative, that are confident, that are expressive, those parts are the clues, are the parts that hold what gives us purpose. I suppress those parts of myself when I self-abandon, when I do things for other people but not myself, when I push through, when I get a health symptom or I become depressed or anxious and I ignore it. That's suppression. Repression, on the other hand, generally comes in when we don't know it's there. It's being pushed so far away. We forget our upbringing, like don't have much of a memory of our upbringing. That's repression. So I don't know it's there. And the only time you might know it's there is you might start to get flashbacks. You might start to get a feeling that something's not quite right. Often we don't get this until we've worked through a bit of the suppression stuff first. This is my experience. It might not be all therapists' experience, but my experience of repression is it's not until you feel safe with a therapist and you've worked through some of the suppressed parts of yourself is when like repressed stuff can come up. That's like the flashbacks. That's like dreams that we can have that feel terrifying. That's like the fear response that can come in that can bring terror. It's not until we start to open up that space and feel safe that we might start to get to the repressed part. All of this uncovers what gives us purpose and helps us move towards it. So we need to uncover and integrate the layers of what is keeping us blind to our purpose. So it's there. We all have a purpose. We were all born into this world to thrive, not survive, and not suffer. So if you're in a space of suffering, pain, and that's all you know, there is more for you out there. If you're in a space of, oh, my life's okay, but I'm not really excited about it, there's more for you out there. And so unless you start to really honor those parts of you that are curious and thinking about something more, you will not get to your purpose because it's not just going to pop up. It needs your attention and focus. So this is a good example of Freud's subconscious stuff. And now look, the numbers itself, I don't know if they can totally be accurate with that, but what the point is of the subconscious mind is actually what's in charge and where we behave from. So my work is uncovering the beliefs and really seeing and feeling into the emotions. What are your habits? What are your values? What is your motivation? And uncovering all these things, your intuition, your imagination, everything that's in the subconscious, uncovering and getting to know those parts of you to then be able to see, okay, there's something more for me out here. And the reason why I haven't been going for it is this, and this is what I know I really love doing. We all function from the subconscious, and many of us don't know it until we start to do the inner work. So anytime we get an outcome we don't like, we can explore that on a subconscious level. So in order for us to tap into the subconscious, what we really need to do is to slow down, to go into the body, feel the emotions, feel and honor the symptoms that come up. It can come up in many different forms in our subconscious. It can come up as a dream, a visual, a thought process, a feeling, a movement, or it can come up kind of like a drop-in as well, intuitively. We really need to start honoring all of our sensory systems of the body, because I know that in clinical psychology and in the medical field, it's quite focused on the brain and the mind. Whereas now in polyvagal theory, they're starting to realize that, wait a minute, there's the body and the mind are really connected with our mental health. It's not just about the mind. So with these new discoveries, we're realizing how much we actually function from the subconscious rather than our conscious awareness. You will know that you are not in alignment when you're listening to up here and making decisions from your mind and not your body, because you will not get what you want. You'll get the same outcome over and over again. And it will generally be something that has a consequence to it, a high paying consequence. In order for us to start to live more in alignment, we truly need to go into the belief systems, emotions, and the parts of us that we've pushed away to survive in this world. When we are searching for our purpose, we have been living from a place of fear rather than growth and evolution. So what I mean by this is even asking the question, what gives me purpose, means that we may have lived a life up until our 20s, 30s, usually it's like 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s that we start to say, hey, what am I really here for? We become more wiser. Our spirituality amplifies. We take care of ourselves more. And then we also get to a place of where our value and worthiness is also growing. So what I mean here is there's a good chance that you may have been, if you don't feel aligned with your life right now, you may have been making decisions from a place of fear rather than growth and evolution. Not all your decisions, but some decisions. Once we can identify that, the growth that you can have is so amazing, because you'll know what the difference is in your body, in your being, between a fear-based decision and a growth-based decision. So what holds us back from stepping into our purpose? It's like the decisions that we make to avoid discomfort. This world is built on quick fixes and avoiding discomfort. So drinking, partying, what else avoids these feelings? Medication, food, shopping, anything that feels good. So in order for us to uncover what gives us purpose, we need to go through the parts that don't feel so good to get to know all parts of us. So things like procrastinating, taking care of others, I've mentioned this already, giving up on ourselves too, like starting something and giving up because we're listening to the protective voice that says you're not worthy, you're not good enough, who do you think you are, you can't afford it, all the things that come up. Those are all belief systems and voices that are not yours necessarily, in the sense of you have grown up in an environment that has fostered that way of thinking. Fearful of trying something new, being judged, all these things, any fear that comes up, any justification, excuse that comes up, there's a fear underneath that. What decisions do you make from a place of growth and evolution, and how does that feel in the body? So start to understand what decisions you're making and whether you're making decisions from a place of growth or fear. What are your limiting beliefs that you're aware of, and what are your core beliefs that are subconsciously stopping me from stepping into my purpose? I was meant to say you, stepping into my purpose. So there will be core beliefs under, so your limiting beliefs will be more the excuses. Excuses are limiting beliefs. It doesn't mean it's not true, in the sense like on a circumstance level, you may not have money, but you can work towards getting money to be able to invest in yourself. So the circumstance is, this is how much money I have in my account. The way we think about it is the limiting belief. Can I work towards getting that? How can I manifest money so I can do the work and step into my purpose? It's the limiting belief is, I can't afford it. Other people can do it. Who do I think I am? I don't have time. These are limiting core beliefs. So the core beliefs that limit us are, I'm not valuable, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough. Those are core beliefs, and they really get us, those ones. Those are quite subconscious, and they're at the core of why we want to do things that feel good, and why we're scared to go into our emotions. What fear and black and white rules do we live by that are stopping us from living into our purpose? Sorry about the spelling in this. So our black and white thinking and fear can also limit us. And what thoughts do I have and beliefs that stop me from stepping into my gifts? I've really done the way I've written that. Sorry about that. So what thoughts do I have and beliefs that stop me stepping into my gifts? Now, many of us don't even know what our gifts are, what our strengths are, because we're so focused on what we're not. So really good way of understanding what your gifts are and what your strengths are is by asking other people, because they're not in your mind and they don't have the limiting beliefs about yourself then that you may have. They don't have those. So asking friends, what are my strengths, is a really cool way to get an understanding of how you might be limiting yourself, thinking you're not good at something, but really it's a belief system or a thought process that is keeping you small. Follow the thread. Now, we all have opportunities, glimmers of what is in alignment with us, and it comes through emotions and it comes through feeling states as well. So curiosity, that pull towards something, we have a curiosity. What stops us is the limiting thoughts and belief systems, where we might have a curiosity towards something, but we might shut it down very quickly. Lightness, when we feel lightness about an idea, that's a really good indicator that it's the right idea to follow. Contentment, when we know that we're following the right ideas, we've got clarity and direction, and we have this contentment within us, it feels light and it feels like, yeah, I'm on the right direction. Excitement. So someone may recommend something or an opportunity and this excitement comes over you. That's a really good sign to follow that thread. Energize, anything that makes you feel energized after you do it, another good sign. Experimentation. So there'll be things that you might be drawn to and there's a lesson in it. So it's experimenting with ideas, and the lesson will get you closer to your alignment. Alignment, what does it feel like to be in alignment? So this is where stepping into your emotions is really important, navigating your alignment through that. Alignment feels easy. You'll manifest easily from alignment. This sounds woo-woo, and this sounds like this couldn't be possible. When we're in alignment, we will manifest the things that we want and it will be easy, and we won't find that there'll be real negative consequences to it. So it will flow. It will flow. And mastery. When we are in alignment, we can then master the skills within that alignment. And that mastery takes time. It takes a few years to get to that point, but that's the growth, that's the evolution. So it's educating yourself in that space, whether it's a course, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, however you want to master what gives you purpose. If you would like to work with me, I have some programs on at the moment. I've got the couples therapy session package. I've got your Uncover Your Purpose. That's a really cool one to do after today's session. How to Say No, boundaries package. And I've also just have one-on-one sessions that you can do where we focus on whatever specific thing you would like to work on. I've got many tools and strategies in this space, and I also follow your inner wisdom of your body. And whether that's processing past trauma, whether that's supporting you to step into your goals, your purpose, we uncover it, we get clear, you have direction. You'll know what your fear is and what's holding you back. You will know what to do with that so you can move forward. So we work through your blocks as well. I hope you enjoyed today's masterclass, and I look forward to next week's masterclass at 12:30, which we've changed the time to 1:30, and I'll see you then.